All right, everybody. We got ourselves a fun little video right here. This is the 10 most intimidating fighters that couldn't back it up. It's by MMA on Point. Get back over here. And it promises to be an interesting one. Let's go, shall we?
If you've watched enough MMA, you'll know that size doesn't really mean a lot if you don't have any skills to back it up. But
This
that
is
is
true.
a lesson fans often have to see firsthand for themselves. So if you
Yeah, he's not wrong. A lot of people just kind of default to, the big guy with the big muscles and the big, intimidating stare. The kind of guy that looks like a character in a video game. People kind of assume that that's the guy who's automatically going to win, and that's not always the case. Sometimes, sometimes technique beats out raw power, and definitely beats out looks.
If you do happen to be a big, scary-looking guy, well, you've either got a shot at just intimidating the hell out of your opponent or being able to convince fans to buy tickets because they believe you're some kind of Hulk-like MMA superhero.
Hulk-like, well, depends on the Hulk.
And there's been plenty of giant, scary dudes that look like they should be playing Marvel villains when really, well, Mighty Mouse probably could have handled them pretty.
Oh, Mighty Mouse. That's a reference, boy. This guy's got some years on him. I could tell. Mighty Mouse, man. That's old school right there, man.
Easily. I'm Bailey in from MMA on Point. As always, I want to say thank you to our channel members and Hall of Famers. And these are the 10 most intimidating fighters that couldn't back it up in MMA. Number 10,
Right.
Dave Lagino. Let me tell you, there is nothing more scary than those debt collector guys from the UK. And Dave Lagino started off as one of them before turning his hard man lifestyle into being a hard man on the big screen.
Yeah. I'll tell you, debt collectors here in America could be pretty fucking intimidating as well. So let's not front and act like there's something special about debt collectors anywhere else. They're all fucking hard asses and pieces of shit who can get really tough on people. I get that they're necessary. Some people think they can just get away with not paying shit, but a lot of the time it's just let's beat up on poor people, because they're a little bit late.
And when he wasn't acting tough in British movies, he'd go on to terrify children as the half-man, half-wolf dude Fenrir Greyback in Harry Potter.
He certainly looks the part.
He's even been a Queen's executioner. In 2005 in the UK, though, if you'd been in that kind of debt collector world and were a big, scary, bald bloke, having a fight in Cage Rage basically came with the territory. He'd already...
Cage Rage. I bet they spent hours coming up with that name. Just like a board of about 20 people. All like, yeah, what could we name our MMA organization? What would have that punch, that really glamorous look that people are like, yeah, that's where the big boys play. Cage Rage.
He had some martial arts training, but he took the intensity to an insane level in Cage Rage.
You're a fool. You've come here to conquer, but it is you who will be defeated. But will you perish standing like a man, crawling on the floor like a worm? For God, England, and St. George, the fight is on!
I'll give it to this guy. This guy's fucking intense, bro. He thought he was doing something. Like I gotta hand it to him. He thought he was doing something.
I mean, the dude walked out carrying a freaking severed head of Minowa Man. And unfortunately, yeah, he was taken down pretty early and tapped by the Japanese Giant Slayer. Dave, though, then fought another old-school British heavyweight, Mark Epstein, but this time, it was over in less than 60 seconds. At this point in his career, well, he hadn't backed up any of the tough guy antics. Dave did turn things around with a win over Chemo, but he then retired just 1 month after that loss, because it was 12 years after UFC 3 at that point. And Dave himself was already pretty old, so ended his career 4-3 with a win over Herb Dean after he suffered an eye injury.
Herb Dean? I thought that dude was always a referee. I know he was a fighter as well. That's interesting.
So he doesn't really have the best wins, and he's in here at number 10, mostly because he played a really scary guy and actually tried to scare and intimidate his opponents in the sport. Also, rest in peace to this guy as well. He was brave enough to step out of his comfort zone and practice what he portrayed. Number 9.
Hey, he ain't wrong. MMA on Point is not wrong. A lot of people, they talk a lot of shit, but they don't have balls to try, you know? So, you know, hey, good on him. Good on him.
9. Zulu Zinho. It says something that one of the only guys the Gracies were worried about at UFC 1 was the sumo guy. Simply because they didn't know if they'd be able to take down or play guard with a man that massive. Dude got kicked in the face though, and we learned, yeah, you can be too big for MMA. But let's fast forward to 2004, where down in Brazil they had a giant dude who apparently could fight. Not only that, but this guy Zulu was the son of a legendary Vale Tudo fighter, Ray Zulu, who apparently had a 17-year unbeaten streak with like 150 wins.
Apparently. That has the feel of like an urban legend, right? It didn't sound like it's entirely verified. Correct me in the comments, of course.
Either way, at almost 400 pounds and 6'4", Zulu Zinho was massive and one of the biggest guys ever to fight in the sport. After winning several regional fights in Brazil, Pride obviously wanted to give him a call to come in, and almost immediately he was fighting Fedor in like just a spectacle fight, really.
Yeah, it sounds like a spectacle fight. Fedor didn't fuck around. He was something. He just ripped people up, man. Absolute beast of a fighter. And that's the thing about like a lot of these Japanese organizations. Like you see it with Ryzen as well, where it's like they'll just put on freak show fights for the Japanese crowd. You know, shit that would never fly anywhere else. Like there's that what's she called? Gabby Garcia, that roided up freak. They put her up against like old ladies and shit. Ridiculous.
Really. But the champion just ran straight through him. And then Zulu just had a string of losses against higher level competition before leaving Pride and then still getting beaten up by just kind of journeyman fighters who are nowhere near his own size. Sometimes he was just like falling over. I think just having lost all confidence in the Vale Tudo guy he was. After getting to Pride, he then got knocked out 9 times across the next 15 years, even in slap fighting.
What the? Okay, what the hell is the... I've seen a lot of these slap fighting clips. Like, what's the appeal? Like, I get MMA. Sorry. Because there's, you know, I get MMA, I get boxing, I get, you know, kickboxing, collegiate wrestling. That I understand people watching, because there's like, there's this raw violence, there's skill, there's tactics. This is just two people standing, one of them with his hands behind his back, and they're just slapping the shit out of each other. I don't get it. Like, I slap, you slap. I slap, you slap. It doesn't seem like it would be anything more than a sort of freak show, kind of like eating competitions, you know.
And Zulu Zinho falls to his legs.
Number 8, Bob Sapp. Now, at first, based on just sheer size alone, Bob Sapp was a threat to almost anyone. I mean, we saw that when, just a few months into his Japanese career, he picked up Big Nog, the champion, and nearly broke him in half. Okay,
now Bob Sapp is a bit different. He had ability. The thing is, he realized that it was a lot easier and a lot more profitable to just throw fights. So he just like he'd let the guy he was fighting hit him a couple of times, then just crawl into a fetal position. He was there to job. He didn't care about fighting. He just wanted the money, which, I mean, I guess whatever, but you know, there's other ways to do it, man. And the way this dude looked, if he'd been a legitimate fighter, if he'd actually showed what he could do throughout his career, You know, he could have been in TV, movies, all that shit. He was a beast of a man.
And often, you know, he was still trying to go after his opponent
Yep.
after the bell, so it made him seem even more terrifying.
Oh. Okay, Sappy.
With the kind of size and strength he had, he was one of the biggest fighters in the sport, and for the first few years, you know, he didn't actually do that bad.
Well, that's because for the first few years he actually gave a shit.
But some of the guys he was beating just weren't exactly the best of fighters themselves.
Fair enough, I suppose.
And usually, you know, they were just chaos, these fights, almost comical.
Well, it goes back to what I was saying before about the Japanese freak show fights.
If the fight lasted, you know, a few minutes, Bob was good, but cardio was just a major factor for him.
Well,
And once everyone kind of knew that his size was literally, you know, nothing to be scared of, he just started getting beaten by everybody. Sometimes he was finished, and sometimes he just seemed to quit. Super gifted athlete, definitely on the juice, and one of those guys where he was almost, you know, just too big and couldn't really harness it.
yeah, more times than not, he was quitting. After like the first few years, he was just not there to do anything but get a quick paycheck. You know, the kind of guy who could only make money in Japan. Because he'd get kicked out of any other league. Absolutely any other league.
Number 7, Todd Duffy. The first UFC fight for Todd Duffy was just mind-blowing. He
What
looked
the
like a genetically
fuck?
engineered version of Brock Lesnar and then flatlined Tim Hague in 7 glorious record-breaking seconds.
Isn't Brock Lesnar the genetically engineered Brock Lesnar? I think we all know he's not natural. That boy's juiced up on so much fucking gear, it's not even funny.
And right after that, he was on the receiving end of Comeback of the Year against Mike Russo. And then Todd was just released from his UFC contract.
I don't
Okay.
like his attitude. He made it seem to me like he doesn't want to be in the UFC.
Todd had a knee injury and had to put out against his next opponent, and he'd been offered a movie, Never Back Down 2, but he told reporters that although he accepted, he wasn't going to do it because the UFC said they didn't want me to do it. Apparently his manager had agreed to
Ooh.
the fight, not Todd. The UFC had wanted him on that fight card though because Brock Lesnar was on that fight card. Either way, the UFC just dropped him, but before the end of the year, Todd was ready to fight again, and he was booked by Dream to fight Alistair Overeem for their heavyweight title. But the call came on pretty short notice, and Alistair just absolutely destroyed Todd in a flawless fashion, just 19 seconds. The problem next for Duffy was that just despite clearly being this athletic animal, he just couldn't get his career together. He made it back to the UFC, and once again looked great in 2 fights, but then against an aging Frank Mir suffered an almost immediate horrendous KO.
Yeah, it seems like my man just after the whole drama with the movie thing and being kicked out of the UFC, I guess he just didn't understand what he was what he wanted to do, which, you know, happens to everybody at some point in their life, I suppose, but probably not the best thing to be having on your mind when you're in a cage with a guy who actually wants to beat that living dog shit out of you.
Then against an aging Frank Mir suffered an almost immediate horrendous KO. It was the kind of thing that had everyone questioning his career, and then he didn't fight for 4 more years.
Came out of the last fight, I already needed knee surgery going in. I had a bad knee surgery, was kind of forced into a fight. I've been healthy for the last 2.5 years, just been dealing with contract stuff.
You see, he was forced into. He's even saying he was forced into a fight with a bad knee. Like, bro, if you got a bad knee, you got a bad knee, bro. You don't have to. You don't have to kill yourself on this shit, man.
Stuff, to be honest with you.
And when he did fight again, you know, he got eye poked in the first round, and again was let go from the UFC. Number 6, Greg Hardy. Crossover athletes usually make a bit of a splash in their arrival into the UFC, and there was definitely a lot of talk when Greg Hardy debuted on the Contender Series. Some of it because he was a former NFL player, so he was pretty fucking massive and was used to running head-to-head full speed at some of the biggest guys on the planet. Some of it was because of his controversies and court cases.
Okay, what the hell is it with team sports in general, but football in particular? Like, there's like athletes be getting these controversies every week. It's drunk driving, it's domestic violence, it's drugs, it's assault. Bro, you're getting paid millions to play a fucking children's game. How hard is it to not be an asshole when you're off the field? I don't get it. You know? And it's especially when it comes to the DV stuff, right? Because it's like, leave the house, hire a hooker, get it out of your system, and just get on with your day, man. Like, this guy, being rich doesn't really solve your problems if they're in here. You know what I'm saying?
Off the pitch, and most of it was because he was clearly very, very new to MMA, and surely he just, couldn't be UFC ready yet. Now, while Greg Hardy's 2 sub-60-second knockouts on the Contender Series gave some people reason to sign him, the reality was those guys were not UFC caliber either, and when his debut did happen, he didn't make a great case.
He doesn't look like a fighter. He looks like he's drunk. Like, his eyes kind of rolled up. His mouth kind of askew. Like he's halfway towards being a zombie from Resident Evil or something. All he needs is the skin decay and you can put him in the Spencer Mansion easy.
For himself by kind of just forgetting even the basics. He forgot the rules and got disqualified. Look at his face. I mean, he genuinely didn't know what he did was illegal. And I like the irony that a guy coming over from what some people would say is arguably a more complicated sport couldn't understand the basic rules. And it kept happening. I mean, remember when he thought it was okay to use an inhaler in between rounds? He did get some knockouts, but against guys who were no longer in the UFC just a year later. Really, the 3-fight losing streak at the end of his career shows a guy who initially the UFC thought might generate some numbers to just fodder for the upcoming heavyweight talents who all knocked him out pretty ruthlessly.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate part. Not every tough guy can be in every tough guy discipline, right? Like you can be a badass football player and not do well in MMA, like Greg Hardy here. We had Michael Jordan, who absolute legend on the basketball court. Tried his hand at baseball, it didn't quite work. Oh, didn't work at all, quite frankly. He was dog shit on the White Sox, I think it was. Just because you're a big bad athlete doesn't mean you can cross over very easily. There's a reason people like Bo Jackson and Deion Sanders are revered for their having such high level play in two sports, because it just doesn't happen every day.
5, Big Baby, aka Marcus Jones.
Big Baby? That's your MMA nickname, Big Baby?
Poor Rampage Jackson was having a terrible time coaching against Rashad Evans in the Ultimate Fighter Season 10.
Bet.
Jackson was losing every single matchup with Rashad's guys dominating. That was about to change though with the ace in the hole, Marcus the Darkness, otherwise known as Big Baby.
You see, Marcus the Darkness, that sounds more intimidating than Big Baby. I wonder how he got that nickname.
Good job.
Oh, that must be why, because he sounds like a fucking baby.
Good job.
Now, his childlike approach to learning new MMA techniques wasn't what got him the nickname Big Baby, though, because despite being 6'6" of lean, stacked muscle, he was a bit of a sensitive guy.
Everybody says I'm a little soft or I'm a little sensitive. I am a little sensitive, but I enjoy myself.
And he was definitely not acting like the biggest man in the room on the show.
What the He just jumped like he's all like a fucking ghost, man.
Despite that, though, he did okay on the show at first, getting Rampage's first win on the team, but he was clearly just a raw talent with a lot of skill development needing to get him to the UFC level. And then later on in the show, he was brutally KO'd while kind of just lumbering towards Brendan Sharp. The UFC still gave him an opportunity to fight in the organization, but again, the big man just couldn't seem to put it together and didn't really have, the body mechanics to move like an MMA athlete. He was knocked out cold again while charging at Matt Mitrione. That was his own UFC fight. After that, he hung up the gloves to spend more time with his family.
Not a bad idea. He needed to go. You know, a lot of people with like raw physical ability, like I was saying before, if you ain't got it here, it don't matter.
Number 4, Kimbo Slice.
Oh, come on. Kimbo was more of a boxing guy. You know, his trip into MMA was maybe not the best idea. You know, he was more about sitting there and hanging and banging and just throwing fists. You know, he wasn't exactly the fastest person on the planet.
So, could Kimbo Slice fight? Well, if you're talking about in the backyards of Florida, hell fucking yes. But at a professional level against other trained guys, well, of course, part of what made Kimbo popular in the first place is that he's massive. Dude was genetically gifted, and that giant beard just added to this whole jacked pirate cap.
Oh, yeah.
If you watch Kimbo in Pro Elite, you might have thought he was pretty good because he was, you know, knocking guys out, but you might have also been listening to Dana White at the time.
Kimbo sucks.
Seth Petrozelli gave Slice his first loss, and it shut down a lot of the hype. Of course, Dana White then backtracked on everything he said and gave Kimbo a shot in the Tough House, only for him to get sat on.
Of course.
Country Nelson. But even because of that, his debut in the UFC was still really hyped. It was against Houston Alexander, but that one didn't really deliver either, with Kimbo averaging only 13 strikes a round. He had only one more fight in the UFC where, again, unfortunately, he just wasn't able to compete. He landed just 5 strikes in 10 minutes before he was finished by another tough Season 10 member. Now, the last 2 fights of his career where he was competing well past his prime years athletically also, did him no favors. However, those original fights and his personality and attitude to the sport were enough to make him a legend. But I think that moment he walks through the doors into the Tough Gym really shows how powerful and intimidating his aura was.
Oh yeah, no doubt. He was an absolute monster in street fights. You know. And I think it's didn't he co-found Bare Knuckle Championship? You know, the Bare Knuckle Boxing League? I thought he was involved in that somehow. See, that would have been a more suitable place for him than UFC, because it's more limited. It's straight boxing. It's not a lot of other shit going on. It's a more focused discipline than having to learn so much more.
Number 3, Dave Batista.
Wait, that Batista?
Honestly, the reason behind Batista doing MMA is pretty relatable. He'd become a 6-time WWE World Champion and is a giant dude covered in tattoos and just looking almost too intense at times.
Yeah, he definitely looked way too intense at times. You could tell he was zeroed in.
I've been thinking about it for a long time, really just because I was a fan. I'm a real huge fan. Something like before I'm too old to do, I'd love to jump in and give it a try. And
That's actually a very good attitude. He's not sitting there, shit talking everybody. He's just like, you know what? I'm gonna give it a shot. I can still do it. Very humble, very, very respectful. He's just like, man, I just want to give it a go. See if I've got the shot. You see if I've got the chops to do this shit. Nothing wrong about that.
Been a martial artist for a long time.
He was booked at a Real Pain event, but his opponent fell out on short notice, and instead he got Vince Lucero, a veteran of 44 fights, 20 and 22 this guy was, and he stepped up. Still, he's not the best fighter, but that experience meant a lot, and immediately the fight did not go Dave's way.
Another right. Left hook, right cross. Another left hook, right cross.
Holy shit.
Nice elbow by Baptista.
Honestly, I don't know where all the training went because he barely throws a punch and eats so many. It's only when Vince started waving to the crowd and kind of taunting Batista that Dave hit this beautiful takedown.
Interestingly enough, he shoots right in for the takedown and he gets it.
Big takedown by Dave Batista.
But considering the difference in the physiques between the two guys, I mean, Dave was the much more intimidating looking guy.
Never mind the physiques. Like, it's clear that Dave could, actually wrestle. I mean, that takedown was beautiful. He's not only show. A lot of people don't understand that a lot of the older wrestlers, like Dave, Punk, Cena, like, they were athletes. Some of them were collegiate wrestlers. Some of them were, in school football or whatever. Like, they were actual athletes, and they were trained to make their athleticism into a show. Making safer versions of these ridiculously dangerous moves was part of the magic of wrestling before the flip artists came in and ruined it all. Dave, Cena, Punk, they're among the last of a dying breed of people who knew how to do wrestling correctly. And I think Dave's problem here is that he was trying to do strikes more. It's kind of like what Amanda Nunes was saying after she beat Ronda Rousey. You gotta lean into what brings you to the dance,
If this keeps up,
This might not last much
maybe 2
longer.
or 3 more punches, that'll be it.
I think my nerves got the best of me a little bit. I didn't have my legs under me coming out. I was just so nervous.
But considering his future acting opportunities and his age of 43, he never did. I put this one so high up in this video though simply because, he only had one fight, and all anyone remembers was, for most of it, he got beaten up. And in this case, you're literally only as good as your last fight, and for Dave, it's not the best example. Still though, he achieved a life dream by competing, and shit, if you are 40 watching this, you can still take that fight, dude.
There it is, man. Just an older guy who, just wanted to try it. And you can't really say nothing bad about it,
To Nathan Jones. Big old Nathan Jones, eh? I've seen this guy face crush Tom Hardy, absorb punches from Jackie Chan, get double knee drilled by Tony Jaa, and then still power slam him. Oh yeah, and he went one-on-one with Achilles that time, but that didn't really work out. Point is, Nathan Jones looks...
That was a nice looking bit of I don't think that was a retracting knife because the hilt isn't small enough. Well, some pretty good CGI if that's the case.
Like one of the biggest, scariest Australians you could ever meet. I mean, he even did a stint in the WWE. At 6'9", 345 pounds, yes, Jones is a monster, but when it came to actual fighting, well, his fighting career began and then was over in just 2 minutes. Not surprising given
that was quick.
at the time that Jones ended up at Pride 1, fighting another big guy and banned pro wrestler, the Japanese judoka Koji Kitao.
Banned wrestler? What was he banned for?
Fortunately for Nathan, almost immediately he threw one knee in the clinch and got taken down. And about 15 seconds later, the big man Nathan Jones was tapping to a key lock. And guess what? Well, he never fought in MMA again. I mean, there's all manner of ways you can imagine a dude like that fucking you up, and we've seen him do it in films. But of course, you need a ground game or it's all going to be pretty pointless.
Yep, that's the thing about MMA. You need a ground game because a lot of fights, they end up on that canvas, man. You can't just be standing up. It's like I was saying with Kimbo, he was really only about standing up with his fists. He wasn't really a grappler in the way a lot of the legendary fighters are, especially nowadays.
He absolutely did not match up to his on-screen persona, but the guy did get in there as an actor. Credit to him, and in a legit promotion like Pride, not the most legit opponent though.
The Colossus of Boggo Road.
Number 1, James Thompson. Starting out as a rugby player who almost went pro, but then ended up as a bouncer and debt collector. Terrifying.
How the hell? I wonder why he didn't end up going into rugby. Did he have character concerns that scared teams off? Or did being a bouncer and a debt collector just make more money? Let me know in the comments.
Fine. James Thompson fell into MMA when he saw Pride on TV and started to make a name for himself on the local UK scene. James had an insane physique known as the Colossus, and he looked like just roid rage cartoonized in human form.
Oh,
As a
yeah.
massively jacked dude, he did have some success, but then he started getting flown around the world. His debut in Japan would end in just 11 seconds at the hands of Fedor's brother, which wouldn't have been as bad if he didn't also try to intimidate him during the stare down. I mean,
Look at this.
which wouldn't have been as bad if he didn't also try to intimidate him.
Look at this guy. He looks bored as shit. Like he knows this is gonna be a waste of his time. Like he's just like the other guy's like he's staring, trying to stare a hole through this guy, and he's like, whatever. Can we move this along? I gotta watch My Little Pony after this. Come on, man.
Him during the stare down. I mean, he was basically convulsing and screaming at the camera. Now, James then won a bunch of pride fights, but against other freak show guys like Henry Armstrong Miller or Giant Silver. Not anyone that, could really fight. And so what followed after that for James was constantly being matched up with other giant heavyweights who were basically looking to make a name by taking out a dude that looks like James. But unfortunately, so many people started to knock him out. And so James had to go back to the UK regional scene, but that also did him no favours as the same thing kept happening. He was such a jacked guy that any fight he was in was a spectacle.
Okay, what the hell is this referee doing? Hold on, let me think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Such a jacked guy that any fight he was in was a spectacle. But James ended up becoming, kind of a punching bag for other heavyweights, ending his career with 13 knockout losses. Thompson's also number one because he'd often go out of his way to try and be more intimidating, but it only seemed to get him into more and more trouble.
Well, to be fair, that is how you sell fights, is by talking a game. No hating. No hating at all.
Alright, bit of a fun video today. Of course, I'm not really being that serious. Alright, all these guys got in the cage. They all fought, so credit to them. Shout out to Luke Taylor
Real
for
shit.
the video. Thank you, Luke. We appreciate you, mate. Guys, give him some support. Say thank you at @CoolToMe_ on social media. All you Hall of Famers out there, as always, guys, big special thank you to you. Thanks for every single bit of support you give every single month. If you want to join them, guys, click the button down below to find out more. Give us a comment as well, guys. Today, we want to know what you think. Which one of these fighters was maybe better or worse. Do you think I was too harsh on anybody?
I wouldn't say too harsh necessarily. I think you weren't harsh enough on Bob Sapp. That guy could have been somebody if he cared enough,
You can let me know down below. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video though, guys, and don't forget to sub. If you're not subbed, I've been Balian. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.
Later. Yeah, that was fun. It was nice, lighthearted, good stuff, And yeah, dude's right. They all got in there. They all threw hands. And you can't hate that. But yeah. Some of them, their looks kind of fooled people, right? And that happens. It's probably always happened in fighting, probably always will happen in fighting. But yeah, let me have some let me get some comments, see what you guys thought. Anyways, I'll see you all later, and as always, God bless you.